Ah, yes, here you are. We've been expecting you. Pay no mind to Bilbo Baggins. Hellhounds. They're much more ferocious looking than they really are. Shame, really. Anyway, please, come in. Right this way. The Master has been so excited for your arrival. We've been looking forward to having you for dinner.
Help me!
Oh, Derek, what a joker. Right this way, please, right this way. Unfortunately, the Master's been a bit delayed this evening. Very busy man this time of year. But no worries, I've arranged for some special entertainment for you. Please, come and make yourself comfortable. Warm yourselves by the fire. Our entertainment is about to begin. Hello there, friends, and welcome to the Paranatural Podcast. My name is Ben.
And I'm Tyler Durden.
You are not a figment of anyone's imagination. You are Jacob. And we are so glad to have you with us on this Halloween episode where we're just going to tell you spooky stories and urban legends and shit. Jacob, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Oh. What was with that intro?
It was fun.
Oh, that was a hell of an intro.
No, just wait till the
enjoyed
end.
it. Ooh.
Little teaser for you there.
For me or for everyone?
For everybody.
Even you.
Yes. Even
Maybe
you.
a person named Pat.
Named Pat.
Hey, we might have a Pat as a listener. Who knows?
We might. Hi, Pat.
If not, Jonathan. Hi, Pat and Jonathan.
Trevor.
Alex, even. All of you guys.
Yeah.
I don't have time for all your names.
And if you guys, along with Pat and Jonathan and Trevor and Alex, enjoy our show, then don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and review on your podcast player of choice if you can. And share the show with a friend. Tell them all about us and have them listen. And that's how we'll keep growing.
Yeah. 'Cause we got our year coming up, guys.
Yeah, we're working on it, aren't we?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Might have to think of something special for that one.
Oh, absolutely have to think of something special.
All right. So tonight, what we're going to do, if you haven't figured it out by now, is for Halloween, we're just going to, we've picked out some spooky stories to tell, some urban legends type stuff, stupid campfire stories, that kind of thing. Thought it might be fun for Halloween.
All the spooky shit.
All the spooky shit.
Love the spooky shit.
All right, Jacob, who was going first, me or you?
Oh, well, let's go you.
All right, I can go first.
Age before beauty.
We're going to take turns. All right, so the first one that I have is one called Axe Murder Hollow. And this is coming from AmericanFolklore.net, written by S.E. Schlosser. And it's an excerpt from Spooky, Pennsylvania. Ooh. Susan and Ned were driving through a wooded, empty section of highway. Lightning flashed, thunder roared. The sky went dark in the torrential downpour. "We'd better stop," said Susan. Ned nodded his head in agreement. He stepped on the brake, and suddenly the car started to slide on the slick pavement. They plunged off the road and slid to a halt at the bottom of an incline. Pale and shaking, Ned quickly turned to check if Susan was all right. When she nodded, Ned relaxed and looked through the rain-soaked windows. "I'm going to see how bad it is," he told Susan, and went out into the rainstorm. She saw his blurry figure in the headlight walking around the front of the car. A moment later, he jumped in beside her, soaking wet. "The car's not badly damaged, but we're wheel deep in the mud," he said. "I'm going to have to go for help." Susan swallowed nervously. There would be no quick rescue here. He told her to turn off the headlights and lock the doors until he returned. Axe Murder Hollow. Although Ned hadn't said the name aloud, they both knew what he had been thinking when he told her to lock the car. This was the place where a man had once taken an axe and hacked his wife to death in a jealous rage over an alleged affair. Supposedly, the axe-wielding spirit of the husband continued to haunt this section of the road. Outside the car, Susan heard a shriek, a loud thump, and a strange gurgling noise, but she couldn't see anything in the darkness. Frightened, she shrank down into her seat. She sat in silence for a while, and then she noticed another sound. Bump, bump, bump. It was a soft sound, like something being blown by the wind. Suddenly, the car was illuminated by a bright light. An official-sounding voice told her to get out of the car. Ned must have found a police officer. Susan unlocked the door and stepped out of the car. As her eyes adjusted to the bright light, she saw it. Hanging by his feet from the tree next to the car was the dead body of Ned. His bloody throat had been cut so deeply that he was nearly decapitated. The wind swung his corpse back and forth so that it thumped against the tree. Bump, bump, bump. Susan screamed and ran toward the voice and the light. As she drew close, she realized the light was not coming from a flashlight. Standing there was the glowing figure of a man with a smile on his face and a large, solid, and definitely real axe in his hands. She backed away from the glowing figure until she bumped into the car. "Playing around when my back was turned," the ghost whispered, stroking the sharp blade of the axe with his fingers. "You've been very naughty." The last thing she saw was the glint of the axe blade in the eerie, incandescent light. Classic spooky story.
Yeah. Poor Ned.
Poor Ned. Ned dead. Dead Ned.
Ned's dead. Ned dead.
Dead Ned.
All right. So it's my turn.
Your turn.
Okay. So I'm going to go on alleged true stories. These are the scariest. And this is Halloween. I got to scare your pants off. So this one is, it's called Mysterious Visitors by user Moksha. My entire childhood, my father and I used to take late night walks due to his insomnia from shift work. Our neighborhood is considered very safe and ultimately was an urban neighborhood, besides one of the roads towards the back, which was lined with a thick forest for about a mile and about a quarter deep, which circled back on itself. All of these walks are very dear memories of mine, except one, and it ended up being the last one. Along the road with the tree line, there was a single streetlight to illuminate a small plot of land that someone owned, but it was very overgrown and ill-kept. It was very common for us to walk this road to enjoy the sounds of the forest, the lack of illumination, and the ease of circling back. One ordinary night, as we were walking and making conversation, my father abruptly stops, pulls me close, puts a hand over my mouth, crouches with me, and points toward a single illuminated plot roughly 100 yards away. At first, I didn't see anything, and I thought he was pulling my leg, but just as I began to protest his grasp, I see a very small humanoid figure, roughly 3 feet in height, scrawny, and with long limbs, materialize out of the plot's brush line and cautiously take in its surroundings before signaling towards the bush. A few seconds later, 2 other small humanoid figures materialize. After a brief moment of what looks to be a discussion, all 3 make a dash for the forest tree line. Once this happened, my father picked me up, threw me over his shoulder, and made a break for our house, which was roughly a half a mile back. Mind you, my father is 6'5" and 220 pounds, and I was roughly 120 pounds at this time. He never showed signs of slowing due to his fear and adrenaline. After that night, we never took our late night walks ever again. He insisted 4 bright motion detecting lights around our acre plot, and he brought home a dog. A few times I've tried bringing it up, and he won't discuss it. He made it very clear he never wanted to discuss it, and those figures still give me the chills, and the image of the 3 huddled together is very vivid still 15 years later.
All right. This one.
That's scary.
That was Fat Roger. I have a podcat. He just came in the room. They know how to open my
the
door.
creaky door.
They know how to open my door. All right. This story is called Carmen Winstead. They pushed her. Carmen Winstead was 17 years old when her parents decided to move to Indiana. Her father had lost his job, and the only way he could find a new employment was by moving to a new state. The relocation caused a lot of problems for Carmen. She had to leave her friends behind and attend a whole new school in Indiana. There and then, Carmen decided that she couldn't take the bullying any longer. She planned to stay behind that evening, after school, and tell her teacher what had been happening. Unfortunately, her decision came too late to save her life. They pushed her, and she tripped over and fell headfirst down the manhole. When they saw her falling, the girls started giggling. And when Carmen's name was called out, they shouted, "She's down in the sewer." All of the other students began laughing. But when the teachers looked down the manhole and saw Carmen's body lying at the bottom of the muck and in the poop, the laughter abruptly stopped. Her head had twisted around at an odd angle, and her face was covered in blood. Worse still, she wasn't moving. There was nothing any of the teachers could do for her. Carmen was dead. When the police arrived and went down into the sewer, they determined that she had broken her neck. Her face had been torn off when she hit the ladder on the way down, and her neck snapped when she landed on her head on the concrete at the bottom. The police hauled Carmen's body out of the sewer and sent her to the mortuary. Everyone had to stay behind after school while the police questioned all of Carmen's classmates. The 5 girls lied to the police, saying they had witnessed Carmen falling down the sewer. The police believed the girls, and Carmen Winstead's death was ruled as an accident, and the case was closed. Everyone thought that was the last they would hear of Carmen Winstead, but they were wrong. Months later, Carmen's classmates began receiving strange emails on their MySpaces. The emails were titled, "They Pushed Her," and claimed that Carmen hadn't really fallen down the sewer. She had been pushed. The emails also warned that the guilty people should own up and take responsibility for their crime. If they didn't, there would be horrible consequences. Most people dismissed the emails as a hoax, but others were not so sure. A few days later, one of the girls who pushed Carmen down the sewer was at home taking a shower when she heard a strange, cackling laugh. It seemed to be coming from the drain. The girl started to freak out and ran out of the bathroom. That night, the girl said goodnight to her mom and went to sleep. 5 hours later, her mom was woken in the middle of the night by a loud noise that resounded throughout the house. She ran into the daughter's room, only to find it empty. There was no trace of the girl. The worried mother called the police, and when they arrived, they conducted a search of the area. Eventually, they discovered the girl's grisly remains. Her corpse was lying in the sewer, covered in muck and poop. Her neck was broken and her face was missing. It had been completely torn off. One by one, all of the girls who pushed Carmen that day were found dead. They had all been killed in exactly the same way and were all found exactly in the same spot, in the sewer at the bottom of the same uncovered manhole where Carmen had met her doom. But the killing didn't stop there. More and more of Carmen's former classmates were found dead. It seemed that anyone who didn't believe that Carmen had been pushed was eventually found down in the sewer with their necks broken and their faces torn off. They say that Carmen's ghost is still on a rampage, hunting down anyone who doesn't believe her story. According to the legend, Carmen will get you, whether it is from a shower, a sink, or a drain. When you go to sleep, you'll wake up in the sewer, in complete darkness, paralyzed, unable to move, hearing cackling laughter all around you. Then, as you scream in horror, Carmen will come and tear your face off. So be careful who you bully, because you might find yourself on the receiving end of the curse of Carmen Winstead.
Ooh.
And I am not calling bullshit on that story. No, sir. I want to keep my face intact. It's not a great face, but it's the only one I got. God damn it.
That's a nice face.
All right, Jacob, your turn, buddy.
Okay. This one is called A Man's Best Friend. Oh, and it's one of those spooky stories you may not want to repeat in front of young children. It's got that warning. There once was a young teen named Julie who hated having babysitters whenever her parents decided to go out for the evening. Not long after Julie turned 14, her parents decided to attend a party at a friend's house. Julie pleaded with them to let her stay home by herself. She told them that she could take care of herself and that family dog would alert her of any strangers that came nearby the house. Her parents finally agreed and left her to the house. Feeling brave and excited, Julie ran to the television and immediately began watching a scary movie. As the movie progressed and it grew steadily darker outside, Julie began to grow a little scared. Whenever she felt that way, she would reach down and pet the dog. The dog, in return, would lick her palm. Then Julie would be comforted. Julie eventually crawled into bed, but grew scared again. Not wanting to sleep in the house alone, she often reached her hand out in the dark to let the dog lick her palm. Eventually, she fell asleep. A strange whining sound woke her up sometime later. She briefly worried that the dog was warning her that someone untrustworthy was nearby. But when Julie reached down her hand at the edge of the bed, the dog would lick her palm. She did this several times before she was finally able to fall asleep again. The following morning, she woke up to the sounds of her mother screaming. Shocked, Julie ran into the bathroom where her mother and father stood crying. On the tile floor was their dog, who was torn apart. On the bathroom mirror was a message written in the dog's blood. People can lick too.
I've always liked that story. That's just so damn creepy.
Yeah.
Like, you think it's your dog licking your hand, it's really some killer. Ugh.
Some dog killer, even worse.
The dog, even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Riv, that's why you sleep right with me. But you never know when a three-legged man will come to attack me.
Yeah, okay.
That's a penis joke.
Yes, I know.
All right, it's your turn.
All right, this one comes from the Reddit No Sleep.
Oh, the best ones.
It's called I Found an Open Wi-Fi Connection, and it's posted by Rumcake 9 years ago.
It's a good year.
They didn't believe me when I told them there was an open wireless network in range, aptly named Free Wi-Fi. It was rather slow, but that's not the problem. You see, we were camping out in the middle of nowhere. Tar Hollow Forests for any fellow Ohioans out there. We parked the truck about a mile down the trail, and from there, it was a 15-minute drive to the only ramp onto the highway. We were far removed from civilization, to say the least. After we were all done with checking in on Facebook and replying to Snapchats, my friends and I made a game of finding the source of the signal. Marco and Sean went in one direction, Mike and I went the other. 3 minutes later, we were all back at the site. The signal dropped off after 185 paces in the direction I went and roughly 250 in the opposite. We agreed with Sean's proposal to go in a third direction, so to approximate by triangulation the whereabouts of the source. Marco counted the steps, Mike kept an eye on the signal indicator. Sean and I looked out for anything that remotely resembled a router. About 100 feet in, Mike told Marco to stop counting. The signal was at full strength. I looked around for flashing LEDs or running cables or anything that lit up. Marco suggested it could be a pocket Wi-Fi hotspot that another camper had left behind, though that was unlikely since there was no 3G coverage out there. But we found nothing. We gave up the search and made our way back towards the campsite. That's when the Wi-Fi signal disappeared. The sun was setting and it was starting to fog up. A little spooked, we agreed we would pack our stuff and hike back to the truck. When we got back, we realized that we had been robbed. Our bags were torn open, our food supplies were missing, and our tents were toppled. What immediately seemed odd to me was that the thieves hadn't taken our laptops or cameras. Upon closer inspection, all they took were the foods and beverages. And in my opinion, that was the scary part. Needless to say, we crammed whatever we could into our torn-up bags and made a dash for the truck. It wasn't until we got into the truck that Mike told us to check our phones. The Wi-Fi signal was at full strength again. A chill ran down my spine when I saw the name of the connection. Run, boys, run.
Did they run? Is there a sequel to this?
I assume they ran. They're still alive.
That was a good one. It probably scared the shit out of me.
You know, so just to tell the story, maybe it wasn't the scariest of stories, but if you experienced it, that would be fucking terrifying.
Yeah, it would scare me. That would scare me real good. All right. My turn. This one's called Ghost Friend. In 1972, a 17-year-old girl learned that a friend of hers had drowned not too far from his house. Gary's mother owned a large farmhouse and had several acres of property that she tended by herself. In one corner of the property were two large ponds that sat very close together. Oftentimes, Gary, the girl, and their friends would spend summer afternoons lounging and swimming in the ponds. One morning, while Gary was swimming, sorry if you got that groan, everyone. That was River. She doesn't like this story. One morning, while Gary was swimming at the ponds with his cousins, a freak accident occurred and Gary wound up drowning. Gary's the name of the girl in this? The girl had not been there never mind. The girl had not been there at the time, but was completely devastated and felt terrible for Gary's mother. A few days after the funeral, the girl was surprised to receive a phone call from Gary's mother. She hated to be in the house alone and asked the girl if she would be willing to spend a couple of nights at the house to keep her company. Out of respect for Gary, the girl agreed to go. It's a little weird. Gary's mother was delighted when the girl arrived and suggested that she stays in Gary's room. The girl found this idea to be quite unnerving, as everything was the exact same place as how Gary had left it. Instead, she decided to sleep in the guest room, which was directly across the hall from Gary's bedroom. That night, the girl had a very vivid dream about Gary. It was a nightmare, and she was walking along the road that led from the house to the ponds. The moon was full and bright, and as the girl walked up, she could see the outline of someone approaching from the opposite direction. As the figure got closer, the girl realized it was Gary. She called out his name, but Gary did not respond. Instead, he kept walking with his head down, staring at the ground in front of him as he passed her. The girl realized that she could have reached out to touch him, but intuitively knew that it was not a good idea. She watched as Gary passed and walked towards his mother's house. In the light of the full moon, the girl realized that Gary's hair was wet, but there was no evidence that it had rained. Suddenly, the girl woke up and realized that she had been dreaming and that she was at Gary's house. She turned around on the bed and realized that Gary was standing in the open doorway, smiling down at her. She realized that his hair was wet and that he was wearing the exact same outfit that she had seen him wearing in her dream. The girl sat up and smiled at her friend, but the smile quickly faded as Gary moved towards her. That is when the girl realized that his feet were not touching the floor and as he walked, and that her friend was in fact dead and had been for several weeks. Terrified, the girl clutched at her blankets and threw them over her head. She waited certain that at any moment Gary would reach out and touch her. But that moment never came. Carefully, the girl removed the blankets and saw that the room was completely empty. She leaped out and pounced across the wood floor and switched on the bedroom light. A few minutes later, Gary's mother had appeared in the hallway wearing her nightgown. She asked the girl what was wrong. Not wanting to tell Gary's mother that she had just encountered his ghost, the girl promptly lied. Seeing the girl's pale face and frightened expression, Gary's mother had suddenly burst with laughter. "You saw Gary, didn't you?" said the woman. "I can tell by the look on your face. He won't hurt you. I see him all the time." This only made the girl more scared. Eventually, both returned to bed, but the girl slept with the light on and the blanket over her face. The following morning, when Gary's mother asked if she would spend the night again, the girl quickly refused. She spent the day with Gary's mother, but was much too frightened to sleep over there ever again. Decades have passed ever since the terrifying incident, but every time the girl encounters scary camp stories, she dreads hearing her own tale told back to her. Yes.
All right. This is the
Yes.
tale of Resurrection Mary.
Oh, come on.
What? You know this one?
No. Well, yeah, but Mary's my name.
There was a dance that night at the O. Henry Ballroom. So he slicked back his hair, jumped into his red convertible, and cruised down Archer Street, hoping he'd meet a pretty girl. He was a shy fellow who found it hard to talk to girls. Bolder men always danced away with the prettiest girls before he got up enough nerve to say hello. But tonight would be different. Tonight he would sweep one of the girls off her feet. He was determined on this point. The dance floor was hopping when he arrived, and he wasn't having any luck at all with the beauties that lined the floor. He resolutely approached each one and asked them to dance, but they were all taken. After the latest rejection, he retreated to the bar to have a beer and gazed wistfully at the dancers. "Go on, get out there and dance," the barman told him after his second beer. "It's not that easy," he said. "All the girls are here with their boyfriends." "Not all of them," the bartender said. "There are plenty of single girls who come to these dances, but you won't find any of them if you lurk back here. So get out there." At that moment, his eyes fell upon a beautiful blonde standing wistfully at the edge of the floor. She was dressed in an old-fashioned white gown, and her skin was pale as the moon. Her blue eyes watched the dance hungrily from her position behind a tall fern, and he felt his heart beating a bit faster. Such a lovely woman should be dancing. "All right, I will," he told the bartender, swallowing the last of his beer and dropping some money on the counter. He made his way through the bustling crowd and asked her if she liked to jitterbug. She looked startled by his approach, as if she had not expected anyone to notice her that night, but she readily assented to dance with him, and soon they were laughing and dancing the jitterbug and the boogie-woogie, surrounded by happy couples doing the same. When the music slowed, he asked her name. "Mary," she said with a shy smile. She told him she lived in the Brighton Park neighborhood, not far from his own address. He smiled at his beautiful blonde and executed some fancy dance moves. Suddenly conscious that her hands were ice cold and his hand supporting her back was going numb. Some people on the sidelines gave him odd looks as he danced past with Mary. Once the couple opposite them bumped right into them as if they had not seen his partner at all. He was furious and wanted to force the man to apologize, but Mary just laughed and hushed him. When the slow dance was over, he hurried to get his fair partner a drink. The barman grinned at him. "When I told you to dance, I meant with a partner," his friend teased him. "I was dancing with a partner," he replied, irritated by the bartender's remark. "The loveliest girl in the room." "You were dancing by yourself out there," the bartender said. He glared at the man and turned away without answering, making his way back to the girl in white. He handed Mary a glass and asked her to sit at a corner table with him. They watched the dancers for a while. Then Mary turned, said with a sigh, "Thank you for the dance. It has been a very long time since I had such pleasure." "Let us dance again, then," he said infatuatedly, but she shook her head. "I must leave now," she said, catching up her white skirts with one hand and drifting toward the exit. "I'll drive you home," he said. "It's just a straight shot up Archer. Not out of my way at all." She smiled and assented. Heart pounding with happiness, he escorted her to his convertible and opened the door for her. He cruised slowly up the street, reveling in the beauty of his passenger. They were only a short distance from her street when Mary suddenly asked him to stop beside the Resurrection Cemetery. Puzzled, he did as she asked. To his dismay, she got out of the car. "Where are you going?" he cried. "I must leave," Mary said, turning to look at him. "Thank you for the dance and the ride." She walked to the locked gate and then faded away before his eyes. He blinked and rubbed them. Where had she gone? His heart thudded with sudden dread. "It's not safe for her to be wandering the cemetery at night," he muttered to himself. He started the car slowly, cruised the streets around the cemetery searching for Mary. But he couldn't find her. At dawn, he drove to the address she had given him and knocked on the door. An older woman with sad eyes answered after a moment. She was still in her bathrobe. The woman was surprised to find a stranger at her door, and when he asked for Mary, her eyes brimmed with tears. "Mary died in a car accident 4 years ago," she told him. "She was on her way to a dance at O. Henry Ballroom when the car slid off the road. Mary was thrown through the windshield and died on her way to the hospital. She's buried in Resurrection Cemetery." Resurrection Cemetery, the place where he dropped off his beautiful blonde dance partner. He sat down abruptly on the front stoop, hyperventilating. He'd spent the whole evening dancing with a ghost.
I feel for him.
I mean, hey, I've executed a few dance moves myself, but not like that. When I do them, they die right there on the spot.
I mean, the jitterbug's been dead.
Well, maybe it's an old story.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
They did the
It's
boogie
gotta
woogie.
be. But she, like, for real ghosted him. Thanks. All right. Before I tell this story, my dear friend Mandy gave me this idea via Facebook, like all of you were supposed to do.
And only Mandy did.
Yep, only Mandy did. So thank you very much, Mandy. The Legend of Bloody Mary. I'm sure we all know the legend. I'm sure we all have done the stupid little ritual. But if not, don't worry. Jakey's here to walk you through it. And yes, that means you should try it. So Bloody Mary, basically, the way I was raised is you go in the bathroom, turn all the lights off, and it's got to be dark in there. Got to be close to midnight. It's just got to be late. You say Bloody Mary over and over again, and basically, this lady covered in blood. If you see a reflection of a lady, if she's covered in blood, then she's bringing you ill tidings. And yeah, she's a fortune teller. So, oh, cue the TV, Ben.
It's late.
Uh no, this might be the second time it turned on. But if she comes up as a beautiful lady, then you got good news in your future. So I'm gonna read what it came from and all that because I know it's been around for a long, long time. I think like the first one of the first queens uh was called Bloody Mary. I'm pretty sure because she was awful. And then people mistake Elizabeth Bathory as Bloody Mary because she used to bathe in blood. But we already covered that in the vampire episode, everyone. So, historically, the divination ritual encouraged young women to walk up a flight of stairs backwards. That's not safe. Holding a candle and a hand mirror in a darkened house, even more unsafe. As they gazed into the mirror, they were supposed to be able to catch a view of their future husband's face. There was, however, a chance that they would see a skull or the face of the Grim Reaper instead, indicating that they were going to die before they had the chance to marry. And the ritual today, Bloody Mary allegedly appears to individuals or groups who ritualistically invoke her name in an act of catoptrymacy. Catoptrymacy.
Bless you.
Yeah, that's what I thought. The hell is catoptrymacy? This is done by repeatedly chanting her name into a mirror placed into a dimly lit or candlelit room. The name must be uttered 13 times. Holy
Oh,
shit.
fuck. It's 3 where I come
No
from.
wonder she never showed. Yeah.
God damn.
It was either 3 or 6 when I was a kid. No wonder she never showed up.
No
for
shit.
me.
We've been doing it wrong this whole time.
Yeah. I'm going to have to retry it. Or some other specified number of times. There we go. That was in parentheses. The Bloody Mary apparition allegedly appears as a corpse, a witch, or a ghost that can be friendly or evil and sometimes seen covered in blood, hence the name. The lore surrounding the ritual states that the participants may endure the apparition screaming at them, cursing them, strangling them, stealing their soul, or drinking their blood, or even scratching their eyeballs out. Some variations of the ritual call Bloody Mary by a different name. Hell Mary or Mary Worth are popular examples. The modern legend of Hanako-san in Japan strongly parallels Bloody Mary mythology. Did I miss anything? Or dare I say, did Wikipedia miss anything?
I mean, there are so many variations on the Bloody Mary thing that you can throw in about whatever you want, but no, that about covers it.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of interesting to hear the original.
Yeah.
Or at least an older version. Who knows if it's really the original, but
yeah. I always heard that it was like a very, very cruel queen that basically like she would make people bleed out. Like that was her form of punishment. Deep lacerations, and she would do it herself, get sprayed with blood, henceforth bloody bitch.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So the story that I'm going to tell. You know what, Ben? They're kind of short. Can I tell two?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the first one is a ritual where someone apparently died.
Oh, let's do it.
Yeah, okay. So this story was submitted by Maddie, and he describes the death of his best friend Mike. So he describes that at the age of 13, the two pals decided to try to conjure the dark spirit. Mike went into the bathroom alone. For some reason, they believed the ritual wouldn't work if they were both in the bathroom. In this version of the legend, the friends lit 6 candles and used red lipstick to write the numbers 666 on the mirror. Once they completed their tasks, Mike closed the bathroom door and locked himself inside. Dumb. Maddie, stood outside the door listening to Mike's muffled voice as his friend repeated Bloody Mary 6 times. Ha, not 13, you dick. The two waited for 10 minutes, yet nothing happened. Neither friend talked. Maddie grew thirsty during his long wait. It just said 10 minutes. So he decided to grab something to drink. Okay, you know what? That part's actually bugging me. Ben, if we were doing the Bloody Mary thing and then you locked yourself in the bathroom, I would stick around for at least 20 minutes before I grab something to drink, or I'd bring a drink with me.
I mean, if you can't wait 10 minutes to get a drink, you one dehydrated boy. You need to drink more
Yeah.
just in general.
Come on, Maddie. Okay, so where was I? He decided to grab something to drink from the downstairs kitchen. On his way up the stairs, he glanced back at the bathroom door and saw the candlelight was still flickering underneath. But when he returned, Maddie was surprised to see that the candlelight was no longer visible along the bottom space of the door. He tried to enter the bathroom, but the door was still locked. He knocked for Mike to open up, but Mike didn't respond. Frantically, Maddie started pounding louder, rousing Mike's father downstairs. Oh, he's at Mike's house. That's awful. By now, Maddie was terrified. Mike's father managed to pick the lock on the bathroom door. When the lock finally turned, he couldn't get the door opened. Maddie and Mike's father pushed really hard against the door and finally managed to get it open. Inside the bathroom, they discovered Mike's slumped body with his head bowed over the sink. Mike was dead. Maddie concludes his story by warning others not to make the same mistake he and poor Mike did, attempting to summon the spirit of Bloody Mary.
Well, fuck.
Yeah, no kid.
R.I.P. Mike.
Rip Mike. All right. This one is called Green Triangle and Bloody Mary. Originally published on the Castle of Spirits website. Victoria from Illinois tells a chilling story about her encounter with Bloody Mary when she was in college. You don't do this when you're in college. Get some friends. Come on, Victoria.
Just like some shit you do in middle school.
Yeah.
Victoria was a late bloomer.
She just didn't have friends. That's why we do this podcast, because Ben's my only friend.
Facts.
Okay, so during Christmas break at home, she spent the night with her childhood best friend, and the sleepover started with the two girls reminiscing about many sleepovers. They recalled the different games they had played and other silly things they did as young children. Eventually, Bloody Mary came up. The young women laughed about their many fails of trying to summon Bloody Mary. They giggled about how the evil spirit never appeared to them in mirrors, much less tried to grab or scratch them, as the legend claimed. As the night wore on, one thing led to another. Oh boy. And the two best friends decided to try to summon her again. Oh, I thought that was going somewhere else. The young women moved into the bathroom and closed the door. The bathroom had no windows, so when they turned out the light and closed the door, it was so dark it was disorienting. They couldn't see their hands in front of their faces. In the pitch blackness of the bathroom, the friends held hands, clinging to the comfort of knowing, you're in college. Goodness. Clinging to the comfort of knowing each other, each was not alone in the darkness. Slowly, they began to repeat, Bloody Mary. Victoria admits she lost track of how many times she called the spirit's name. 13, I bet. She guessed it was about 10 times. Damn it.
Oh, about
Before
10.
an image, about 10.
Close
It
enough.
was 13. Come on, Victoria.
Learn to count, bitch.
Yeah. You're in college, for God's sakes. She guessed it was about 10 times before an image began to take over the bathroom mirror. Surprisingly, the reflection wasn't of a face, but of a strange green triangle shape. They stopped chanting, and the two friends watched as the tiny triangle expanded slowly. Standing silently in the dark, they gripped each other's hands as the triangle continued to enlarge. Victoria later admitted that she wasn't really scared at this point. Then why you holding hands, dummy? More curious than anything. She also was confused why there was a strange triangle forming on the mirror instead of a ghostly Bloody Mary that they'd expected would materialize. The women continued staring at the triangle for about a half a minute, still holding each other's hands, but she's not scared, apparently. Suddenly, something grabs Victoria's arm. She screams in terror, and so did her friend. Her friend fumbled for the light switch, and the light blasted away the darkness. Her friend opened the door and pulled her from the bathroom. They ran to the girl's bedroom and were so shaken they couldn't even speak. Instead, they just stood staring at each other. Once they'd had time to calm down and realize that they were safe, Victoria asked her friend if she'd seen anything in the mirror. Her friend described the tiny green triangle that had grown in size. She then told Victoria that she felt someone grab her arm, and that is when she screamed and turned on the light, getting them out of the bathroom as quickly as she could. The women kept the bathroom door closed for the rest of the night and avoided it completely. Victoria ends her story by saying her friend refuses to use that bathroom unless she absolutely has to, or apparently holding hands with a friend. She adds that the bathroom is now the coldest room in the house. She admits that is a very strange story, but assures the reader, us, although this story may be a little strange, it is completely true.
Well, all right then. Some nice spooky geometry. I always found geometry boring. I didn't know it could attack you through your bathroom mirror.
I didn't know green triangles had hands. I thought it was just the blue ones.
That one yellow one from that cartoon that wears the top hat, got one eye.
I'm drawing a blank.
I have no idea. Anyway.
Is that Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends?
No. I want to say Adventure Time, but I don't think that's right either.
All right, fair enough.
Listeners, help us out. Who's the fucking triangle guy with the one eye and the top hat and the bow tie?
And if he can turn green and grab people.
Right.
He grows.
Yeah, that's definitely a variation of the story I have not heard yet. Green triangle,
Yeah.
Bloody Mary.
Yeah, I've never heard of it either. That's why I picked that.
Right now.
River, you got a scary story?
Nope. No scary story from River.
Nope. She just had to sniff it.
So on that note, as always, thank you guys so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this little spooky story adventure. Happy Halloween, of course. And with that, I'll say good night.
Love you guys so much, but Mandy gets more love than you because she followed the rules. So love you guys. Love you, Mandy, more. And good night. Happy Halloween.
Well, I do hope you enjoyed that special bit of entertainment while you waited. Ah, here comes the master now. And there goes Derek. Don't bother to run. You'll only die tired. But before you go, happy Halloween.